So let's get back to Smile Jamaica, this concert that was in the works. And as I understand it, Marley was very, again, aware of the political tension, trying to walk this fine line, not to be perceived as being pro-PNP or Michael Manley or, aligned with the JLP, the opposition. But somehow, one of these two political parties kind of glommed on to Smile Jamaica and Bob Marley and sort of took ownership of it. Can you explain how that happened?
Yes, Prime Minister Manley, who was the head of the PNP party, had to approve this concert. And so Bob Marley went to him and explained to him that he wanted this to be a completely non-political concert, just to sort of bring people together, peace, love, the whole thing. And he got the permission from Prime Minister Manley. And then without his knowledge, when the posters came out, and in fact, the poster is illustrated in my book, Mysteries in the Music. When the poster came out, it said, Bob Marley, in conjunction with the Prime Minister's cultural blah, blah department, present the Smile Jamaica concert. So this really angered the JLP party headed up by Edward Siega. And in fact, it's funny because the PNP were running around painting his name, but painting his name as CIA Aga, so that people got the impression that he was connected to the CIA or understood that. Anyway, they were very angered by this because they felt that Bob had betrayed this alleged neutrality. But in fact, it was real neutrality, and Bob was sort of taken by, surprise over that. So 2 to 3 days before the concert, first thing that happened was Prime Minister Manley announced that he was going to have an election about 5 days after the concert. So it was all very clear how he was lining things up. And then 2 days before the concert, Bob Marley and the Wailers were rehearsing at his home in Jamaica, and something like 7 very young, 17-year-olds came in blasting guns all over the place, spraying the rehearsal room. And Bob stood still, didn't even move, and he caught a bullet in the elbow. But his manager had just come in, Don Taylor, and he walked into the kitchen and he was facing Bob, but his back was to that door he just came in. And this teenager just stuck his gun around the door. It wasn't really well represented in the film, but in reality, from actual eyewitness accounts, he stuck his gun in without even looking and just pulled the trigger several times. He hit Bob in the elbow, but he put 5 bullets in the back of Don Taylor, the manager.
Who miraculously lived. Who miraculously survived.
So that happened, and then and also Rita Marley was just leaving in her car. She got shot in the back of the head. She survived, and the Marley group, once they left the hospital, went up to this mountain retreat owned by Chris at Island Records.
Chris Blackwell, yeah.
And so Chris Blackwell, yeah. So they had to decide whether or not Bob should do the concert. And really it was up to Bob, but he was receiving advice from both sides of the coin. One is you're exposing yourself to being shot again if you go up on that stage. There's no way to really protect you at a concert. And the other side of it was coming from Jeff Walker, who was public relations man for both Marley and Island Records. And he was saying, well, you really don't want to disappoint all these people who are planning to attend. It's thousands of people. It's still your concept of doing a peaceful concert to bring people together. It's very important. He also had an ulterior motive, which was Bob had an album out called Rastaman Vibrations. And Bob Bob wasn't going to be touring at all in the fall of '76 or going into early '77. So Walker needed a way to get Bob Marley and that album in front of American record buyers, which was, of course, their big fan base there. So in those days, the only way to do that was to get you on television, such as Saturday Night Live, or there's some midnight rock show.
Don Kirshner's rock concert and the Midnight Special.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you were trying to get clips onto those shows, yeah. Midnight Special, right? And so he did want this concert to go on. And what's interesting is the cameraman hired to do the principal filming was named Carl Colby. And Carl Colby, coincidentally, was the son of William Colby, who had just been fired by Gerald Ford about 12 months earlier.
Head of the
so
CIA.
He really wasn't the head of CIA anymore.
Right.
But that's the sort of thing that starts conspiracy theories when people connect dots that might not necessarily be connected. According to Jeff Walker, Bob Marley knew that Colby's dad was CIA. Everyone in Marley's group knew it. Jeff Walker was with Colby the entire time. He wasn't off shooting up Bob's house or anything like that. And in fact, if you are involved in a CIA assassination, and I lay this all out in the book, there've been former CIA agents who list what the 10 principles are of a good CIA assassination, from who the target should be to after you are involved in it, you get out of that country immediately. So the idea that Carl Colby somehow had something to do with it, and he hung around and chatted with Bob and then filmed Bob when Bob ultimately went down to the concert, it's kind of laughable as a conspiracy theory.
Right. So were the GLP, though, connected to the shooting? Was that ever established?
Based on the people I spoke to who were around Bob at that time, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, I came to the conclusion, and I set forth in the book, that the JLP gang, their main gang leader was a guy named Claude Massop, but he had been put in jail conveniently by Prime Minister Manley for owning a gun. And so he wasn't around. And so the second in command, whose nickname was James Brown, he, I think, wanted to, boost his credibility and perhaps take over the gang. So he felt that the thing to do would be to send a message to Bob and go in there and shoot up the place. And, given the information about how CIA targets are assassinated, given the fact that President Ford had just signed a bill that prohibited the CIA from assassinating people anymore, and he knew that he wanted to, he already had trouble with his legacy because he had pardoned Richard Nixon when he became president. So I don't think that he would have wanted to go out with a legacy of having shot the most popular reggae entertainer in the world either.
Right.
And in fact, that was confirmed by Oliver North, who spoke to him about this. So it seems like it was a gang hit to try to boost the credibility of this James Brown.
So the concert that takes place a couple days later, true or false, Bob Marley still had the bullet in his elbow when he performed?
True.
Wow.
He felt that if the bullet was removed, then it might have affected his guitar playing. And so he preferred to play with pain. And in fact, he never had that bullet removed.
Wow.
And that led to some other theory about lead poisoning killing him. But in fact, a doctor did a full review of all of his medical records and said he definitely died of this rare skin cancer that came from the toe, not from the bullet.